All right, let's continue here now. The week of 12 to 16 September marks the annual recognition of National Wills Week in South Africa. A will is a critical legal document that can help you ensure that your belongings are distributed according to your wishes after you pass away. Yet in South Africa, it's estimated that over 70% of South Africans pass away without a valid will. Now let's discuss this. We are now joined via Zoom by Advocate Anneke Le Roux from the Professional Provident Society Fiduciary Services. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. 70% of South Africans, even more, don't have wills at the time of their death. Now, is it a case of there's not much information around about the importance of wills, or is it a case that the information is not simplified enough?
Good day, Unati and the SABC listeners, and thank you for having me as a guest on this session. I honestly don't think there is a lack of knowledge, and I think by the creating this awareness in this week to have a valid will in place is especially there to create this awareness for people to consider and talk to professionals about the drafting of their wills.
There's also a question of who should get a will drafted. You know, do you wait until you have assets? Do you wait until you have enough money? When's the right time?
Yes, any person that has any assets or is over the age of 16 years are able to draft a valid will. And the will is very important because it will give us the opportunity to express who we want to receive our inheritance. We all want to make sure that our loved ones and our families are taken care of when we're no longer alive. But sadly, if we don't plan for having a will in place, our wishes and our intentions can get lost in translation.
So are you suggesting that anyone, even as young as 25, can then draft one?
That is true. Any person over the age of 16 are allowed to draft a will. Even if they have got minor assets in place, it's good practice to have a discussion with either a financial advisor, an attorney, or a specialist who can give you guidance in terms of setting the plan in place and having a valid will drafted.
You know, we've been watching, a lot of very important people passing away, and sadly, some of their loved ones being made, to left wondered what they have, left for them in terms of from a beneficiary perspective. What are some of the things that you should take into consideration? For instance, if you move in with a partner, but you are not necessarily married to them. And additionally, how can, the surviving partner benefit from the deceased estate if there is no will and there are children involved?
Yes, it's a lot of questions. I'm going to try and answer that in chronological order, but we have to start off by having a plan in place. There are a lot of legislative implications in the drafting of the will. One of them is the marital regimes, whether you are married or not married, and what is the impact in terms of living together, or what we call in South Africa, vat en sit. So as soon as you are accumulating assets jointly, it is important to have a plan in place to secure your loved ones and who should inherit or who should benefit in the event of you not being able or not alive anymore. I often say that the start with the will and making sure that you express your wishes is very important. But you need to understand that what is the implications of your assets, your marital regimes, and all those impact on your ability to leave a good, proper plan and will in place for the loved ones.
Now, Advocate Le Roux, I've got two more questions for you. We've been seeing a lot of advertising about free wills, particularly in this week. Is there such a thing as a free will, or are there hidden terms and conditions in place?
The drafting of a will could be free of charge. That is simply the drafting of the legal document. But one needs to understand that death expenses or costs related to death are still payable through the administration of the estate. So yes, I agree, a drafting of a will is free of charge, but one needs to understand the implications, the administrative costs, the taxes involved, as well as the executor's fees. That still remains a cost to your estate in the event of passing away.
And so that, where a lot of people are saying some of the information out there is currently misleading. Just as a final question as we wrap this interview, a lot of skepticism out there in terms of where you should be drafting your will. A lot of people saying be wary of banks. So what's the best way to go about it? Is it banks or is it through a lawyer?
The drafting of a will is a legal document, so you need to speak to a specialist. Any person who specializes in the drafting of the will and specializes in the drafting or the administration of the estate or the managing of trust, being appointed as trustees, as long as they are specialists, there's a lot of expertise out there. It's not limited to bank attorneys, professional trustee companies. It is to speak to the right person and get proper advice in terms of your estate plan.
Advocate Le Roux, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That was Advocate Anneke Le Roux from the PPS Fiduciary Services. Of course, this week is we're celebrating or we're commemorating or we're marking the annual recognition of National Wills Week in South Africa from the 12th to the 16th of September.